Ivy League universities want to bring back the standardized testing policy. Harvard, Dartmouth, Brown, and now even Yale have declared that they all require students to submit SAT or ACT as part of their college applications. And this is a big bummer because students in the past few years have used this optional testing policy to get out of the whole process of submitting these scores. So in this video, we're going to look at some advantages and disadvantages of submitting your SAT or ACT score and what is the best decision for you. Let's begin. So let's familiarize ourselves with some common terminology because there are a lot of different policies out there. So the first one is test optional. What this means is students can choose whether they want to submit a standardized test score or not. And if you decide not to submit a score, college admission officers will look at the rest of your application like your essays, letters of recommendations, academic aptitude, other scores, etc. The second category is test blind, which means that whether you decide to submit your score or not, it really won't matter and go into their evaluation process, and it won't help you weigh the scale in one way or another. I feel like this is the most safest category, but unfortunately not a lot of colleges offer a test blind policy. And the last category is test flexible, which means that colleges give you a list of different tests. So under their standardized testing policy, in addition to the SAT or ACT, you also have the option of submitting an IB score or, for example, your AP exam score that they consider to be extremely academically rigorous. So you can choose to submit a different type of score, and that is what they'll consider. The text flexible policy in a way is also very good, but not a lot of colleges offer this. Now, 80% of the colleges in the US are test optional, and this kind of gets really confusing because there isn't a lot of clarity within this policy as to how admission officers look at your profile. It depends from person to person, and basically if an admission officer sees that student A has not written the SAT score or the ACT score, we don't know if the admission officer will look at your grades more rigorously or look at your essays to see if you're able to communicate in English properly or not. And it's really not well defined as to what other areas then are considered largely if standardized testing is not. While studying for the SAT and the ACT is a big responsibility in itself, trying to figure out where you can get practice questions and using the right studying material can get very overwhelming. This is where I'd like to introduce you guys to Acely. Acely is an AI-powered SAT and ACT prep tool that offers unlimited practice questions through an AI chat to help you study smarter. Within the chat, the AI bot provides not only detailed problem explanations, but you can ask for more clarifications, hints, if you don't understand anything. With the new rules coming in, Acely is up to date with the digital SAT questions and it sorts questions, making sure that you get what's best fit for you. Their student dashboard provides you with your strongest and weakest areas so that you can actually focus on getting better and improving the points that you lack by the practice questions that are specifically tailored for you. Later this year, they'll be including support for AP tests, college admission advice, and general high school academic readiness. The best part is it's free to try and you guys can get $10 off your first month by using the code CrazyMedusa10. So check out the link in the description and get started with Acely. So I've gone through 200 to 300 college applications and looked in detail as to student profiles, what colleges they've gotten into, and I noticed some key differences as well as pitfalls that made students, get rejected from their dream schools. So we're going to just categorize this whole process into advantages and disadvantages. The first point I want to consider is focusing on your strengths. Now, let's say you decide to go test optional and not write the SAT or ACT. There are other areas you can focus on, but I want to emphasize that these other areas that you decide to focus on need to be academic related. Remember, at the end of the day, standardized testing is a way to judge your academic aptitude and your intellect. You cannot substitute that for extracurricular activities or essays even. Academic aptitude needs to be substituted with something of an equal strength, and that typically means performing well in your high school exams, so all the way from class 9 up till class 12, taking some sort of Olympiads to show that you are a good student and you can perform in a competitive environment, and taking some, competitive subjects like AP tests even. And this is where I've seen many students fail. So The disadvantage to focusing on your strengths within this realm is if you decide not to do anything aptitude related, although you may get by submitting your college application and be fine with the test optional policy, you need to be mentally prepared that you may not get the best offer because you're not, showing that part of your application very clearly to the admission officer that's reading your profile. The next factor is equal consideration. Up until the point that colleges are test optional, they say that they equally consider students that give the SAT or ACT and not give standardized tests. But what I've seen through the actual admits of maybe Ivy Leagues that have an acceptance rate of less than 10%, almost every single student that actually got in had an SAT score, and that too a very good SAT score of somewhere above 1500 out of 1600. So that should tell you that although they say they won't differentiate, for you to really stand out and show them that you are an extraordinary student that deserves a spot in their campus, in their college, you need to do something stellar. And SAT score is a good way to show that. So instead of kind of thinking of it as an enemy, it can actually be used as an advantage for you if you decide to write the exam. The next point is access and availability. Now, over the last few years, students have conveniently used the excuse because of what had happened that, testing centers were closed and they had to travel a very large distance to actually write the SAT and ACT exam. This excuse is getting very old. All the test centers have opened up and things are very much almost back to normal. So this excuse can no longer be used in your college application as to why you decided not to write the test. And even those students that decide to use the excuse, it very obviously seems like an excuse and does nothing to benefit your profile in any way. In all, my personal opinion is that if you are someone who's running late and are late to the entire process of applying to colleges in the US, for example, if someone who's watching this video right now is aiming at applying for fall 2024, whose actual good college deadlines are already over and just rolling applications are left, then it probably makes sense for you to apply test optional because you just genuinely don't have the time to write the test, and it's basically like writing the test versus taking a gap year. On the other hand, if you're someone who's maybe just entering class 12, or if you're even a high school student prior to class 12, please write the exam. Writing the SAT test, if you have like 2 or 3 chances to give and help improve your score, can really help you get into top tier colleges. And if that is your goal, the SAT test is the best place to stand out, because if you can get a good score, it improves and maximizes your chances of actually getting into good colleges. On the other hand, as colleges, slowly start mandating this policy, you're going to have to submit the test score anyway, so you're not going to be able to get around it. With a test optional policy, be mentally prepared that you may be able to get into like a mid-tier, but an Ivy League may not be possible. Alright, so while we're on the topic of academic aptitude, I'm going to show you guys 3 different student profiles, and just for the sake of, because we're talking about aptitudeness, we're going to stick to just the scores in general, and I'm going to show you what colleges these students actually got into. So let's consider student A. This student had like a 95, 96-ish percentage in class 11th and 12th. The student actually gave the SAT exam and scored a 1580. And of course, there were other things on the profile I'm sure that were great, like the essays, activities, we'll keep that aside for now. But the particular student actually got into Cornell University on a full ride scholarship for an undergraduate degree. Student B had high school scores ranging anywhere between 90 to 95%. Student B also gave the SAT exam and scored a 1560. This particular student got into Johns Hopkins University and Columbia University, again, Ivy League top tier universities. Now, let's come to student C. Student C had scores anywhere between 80 to 90% in the entirety of the high school. The student decided not to write the SAT, so went SAT optional and got accepted into Michigan State, rejected by all Ivy Leagues. Now again, I will let you guys judge as to what kind of work for these students aptitude-wise, and we don't have the entire picture because we're not looking at the entire Common App profile, but this does give a rough idea as to the fact that colleges actually want to see some amount of intellectual, knowledge and rigority in student applications. Alright guys, so that's all that I had for this video. I hope that you guys got a good understanding as to whether you should write the SAT, ACT or not, and when you should start preparing, which is pretty much as soon as possible. If you're seriously thinking about coming to a top US university, definitely check out Acely. The link is going to be in the description below. Like and subscribe the video if you're watching till this point, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.